transfer portal, to me, it's always a blessing in disguise because you're adding in premier talent. Here's what I will say. There are going to be players that are not mentioned enough at the start of the transfer portal period right now. You'll hear about Casey Concepcion for Texas A&M. You'll hear about Eric Singleton going on over to Auburn. You'll hear about guys going to Alabama, like Cam Dewberry, the offensive lineman from Texas A&M, now joining forces with Kalen DeBoer. But they may not end up being the fixtures that we're talking about. Isaiah Bond had a solid year out in Austin, but Matthew Golden was the one that we were paying attention to. By the season's end, number 2 was the number 1 option down in the 40 acres. And to me, that's what I'm looking at here. These are players that I think right now, maybe we aren't talking enough about, but they could end up defining college football, or at least the SEC in 2025. How about Rasul Faison, the running back from Utah State? He's now currently going to South Carolina. So South Carolina, for those of you that don't know, just hired a new offensive coordinator. His name is Mike Shula. Mike Shula worked with Cam Newton, and there's a lot of people that see some very similarities between Cam Newton and Lenore Sellers. Well, what did Cam Newton have to better his career very early on out in Carolina? Stable run game, solid tight end. They went and they added in Jordan Dingle, the tight end from Kentucky. They also just went and brought in Faison, who is coming off of an 800 rushing yard season with Utah State, led the Mountain West in yards after contact. He also was top 10 in rushing touchdowns in the Mountain West, and he's a really solid player with physicality. He wins with finesse. He's got some home run speed. So you're taking pressure off of your quarterback, kind of like you did this past year with Rocket Sanders, and he may not be the household name, the one like a Mekhi Hughes that went on over to Oregon from Tulane. But he is a guy that can at least make a lot of noise and be a stabilizer for your offense, especially while you're getting the younger guys implemented into your system. How about Arkansas's Omega Blake? Now, Omega Blake is a perfect fit for the style of offense that they want to run with Taylor Green. Because what does Taylor Green do? He uncorks footballs. He just goes inside and says, screw it, someone's down there, and 50 yards, it's either an interception or it's a touchdown pass. You know, Omega Blake led the country this past year in receiving yards per game. And on top of that, he also led it in yards per catch. 26.6 yards per play down in Charlotte. He's already had experience playing in the SEC. He is a vertical playmaker. This is a guy that you're going to say, run 2 routes for us. Run slants, run goes, use your speed to break up a play and find your way into the end zone for 6 points. It's a perfect fit for the style of offense that you want run with a guy like Taylor Green. And it's a perfect fit for Bobby Petrino to say, we're going to build the rest of the offense around you. We're going to have a guy that can play in the tight end slot. We're going to have a guy that can run the slot. We're going to have a player out of the backfield. But your job is just to get open and win with your straight line speed. If you can do that, we will find you the football. Watch as Omega Blake gets a win, at least for Arkansas, over a team they probably shouldn't. Texas A&M brought in Micah Riley, the tight end from Auburn. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, they brought in a lot of talent this offseason. They did. They brought in a lot of talent at wide receiver. They brought in a lot of talent at cornerback. They brought in a lot of talent on the defensive line. But the tight end position, to me, is such an implement one. And the reason I say that is because look at who's the offense coordinator. Colin Klein. Every single year when you go back and look at Kansas State, it was either the slot receiver or the tight end leading the team in receiving yards. I didn't like the tight end play this past year at Texas A&M. It needed to get better. Guy like Micah Riley, guess what he can do? He can come on in, be a consistent playmaker. He can win in the slot. He can win in the short to intermediate game. He can be your replacement for Donovan Green. And more importantly, he can continue to move the sticks. You'll want a guy like Marcel Reed to get comfortable in the system. The best way to make a guy comfortable in a system, give him a security blanket. Tight ends are that. That's exactly what they need to be utilized as. And when they can run certain routes, it may be 3 or 4. But when they have an identity like that, you're in a good spot. And more importantly, it takes a lot of pressure off your quarterback to have to make those deep shots down the field when they don't feel comfortable doing that. Kentucky brought in Marquise Grace, the South Dakota defensive lineman. I did a video on him if you want to go ahead and check it out. It's somewhere on the YouTube link. So go ahead and click that one and give it a thumbs up. But in that game, he reminds me a lot of Jared Verse. So when Jared Verse was coming out of UAlbany, everyone wanted Verse. Everyone said, this is a guy, All-American for the Great Danes that can be a difference maker from the get-go. And eventually he was. And he decided to go ahead and come back for another year at Florida State and let us do an undefeated season. Now, I'm not saying that that's what Grace is going to be. But Grace has 18 and a half sacks. He has 26 tackles for loss in the last 2 years. He was an FCS All-American this past season for the Yotes. And this is a defensive line that needed to get a ton more talent. They brought in the Washington State transfer kid. They brought in the Ohio transfer kid. They brought in some good offensive pieces. But a guy like Grace is supposed to be the one that stabilizes your roster. Don't be shocked if he's top 10 in sacks. Don't be shocked if he's top 10 in pressure rates. He's working with Mark Stoops, who, the one thing I will say, death taxes, Stoops knows how to get the best out of defensive play. He may end up being a name that we talk about in such a prominent light. And by the way, don't think that he was only going to Kentucky because that was the one SEC school that wanted him. Ole Miss went after him. LSU went after him. Mississippi State went after him. South Carolina went after him. Florida went after him. There were a ton of schools that said the kid from the FCS is good enough to play SEC football. And a guy that is actually going to Mississippi State, as previously mentioned, Fluff Bothwell. Bothwell is the ideal fit for the style of offense that you want to run underneath Jeff Lebby. This is a dude that when you put him on in, he is going to make noise. He was great last season as the secondary runner at South Alabama, over 800 rushing yards, finished with 9 touchdown runs. He also had a really good point after contact approach. He was phenomenal when it came to the short to intermediate game. He's got some home run speed and he has eligibility. 3 more years of eligibility, and he's going to go be playing in a Jeff Lebby system. So many people talk about the passing attack, what the passing attack does. You guys realize that this is a veer and shoot style offense where they want to run it to set up the vertical passing game. This is a running back, similar to what you have with Davin Booth, that can come on in and be that bruiser, be that guy to stabilize the system that you want for Jeff Lebby. And then you get to see the vision of Jeff Lebby. I didn't think Jeff Lebby was going to do much in year one. I don't know why people were overexcited for Jeff Lebby. He had nothing really to work with. What I was excited for is that when he established his culture, you knew what style of offense you were going to see. I don't know if the win total is going to be any better. What I will tell you is I do think that the total of consistency on the ground is going to be better. SEC Unfiltered is proudly partnered with FanDuel. For the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel takes the NFL playoffs to the next level. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's $300 in bonus bets if you win with your first $5 bet. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need, from live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. What's not to love? Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/SECU. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and older or present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and older and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 deposit required. A bonus issue with non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after the receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay, back to the show. Missouri's Ahmad Hardy. Let me ask you guys something. Do you know anything about Ahmad Hardy? No, if you don't, I'll save you the trouble. Guy was top 15 in rushing yards this past year. On top of that, he also averaged 5.7 yards per play, and he was a backbone for Bryant Vincent's squad with the Warhawks. He was a freshman, which means he has 3 more years of eligibility. This is one of the more sleeper moves that I start believing, okay, Missouri's not messing around. Missouri actually means business. Missouri's going to do everything in its power to put itself in the good system to where 10 wins is the new standard. This is a guy that is going to prove to you time and time again, hey, give me 20 carries a game, I'll get you 115 yards and in the end zone twice. This is a guy that can be effective out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And this is a guy that just kind of fits that Eli Drinkwitz mentality of, yeah, I came from a school like ULM, and I know that Alabama wasn't going to go after me, and I know that Missouri didn't look at me that way, and I knew that the state school didn't even want me. But I'll go play for the Tigers. I'll just go to Como, and I'll kill it. And I'll be exactly everything that was asked for of me, and I'll probably be a reason why Missouri is being talked about as a college football playoff contender next year. Lastly, and certainly not least, Ole Miss's edge, Prince Will Unmanliellen. They just had his brother. And by the way, there's a proof of concept. You talk to NFL scouts, even though the production didn't match the price range, a lot of people love him in the NFL. They think that he can be a difference maker from the get-go as a third down pass rusher. Well, his little brother's coming on in. And I can tell you something. If you watch the way that he played last season at Nebraska in a limited role, imagine him working with the same defense that turned his big brother into a standout defensive lineman for the next level. It should give you goosebumps down in Oxford. It should make you feel excited because this is a guy that you got for 2 years And he is going to be your enforcer coming off the edge. He is going to be the reason why maybe Ole Miss, despite not having a Jackson Dart-esque led quarterback, despite not having a superstar wide receiver number one, they're going to have their dudes. And the dudes are going to deliver on Saturdays.